Howard, and welcome back to Talk to a Hawk, the video series where we take you inside HNU athletics. My guest with me today is Scott Howard, head coach of the men's and women's tennis teams. Scott, thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
So, you're a native of San Francisco, and you come from a prominent tennis family. Your father, Gil, won more than a dozen USTA national championships and was one time ranked number 1 in the world in his age division. When did he first teach you to play tennis?
First time when I was about 10, I played baseball and played a little bit of tennis on the side on weekends and such, and then I didn't really get serious about it until I was about 14.
And what was the main thing he really tried to teach you when you did turn serious about tennis?
Just being a great coach, I learned how to play the game properly before I was good at it, if that makes sense. I knew stroke production. I knew watching my 2 older brothers and sister play, my dad. I got a sense of how to play even though I wasn't very good. So when I got a little bit better, I had some of the, maybe the body language, the strategy, the attitude, kind of conditioning, diet, all the ancillary stuff, more than most folks my age, because I kind of grew up watching good tennis.
And now you mentioned your brothers and your sister, all of which have had success. Your 2 older brothers were ranked in the top 500 of the ATP Tour, while your sister played at SF State as the number 1. Did they ever really help you out or kind of try to teach you, or was it more like a sibling rivalry?
No, absolutely. I would work out with my 2 older brothers, and they were quite a bit better than I was, at least initially, and they would work with me on my game, play with me, but also help coach me. And like I say, I've watched them play for years and years, so I learned just a lot by watching, but I did play a lot with them.
And so you ended up attending SF State as well as your sister. There you played as the number 1 for 4 years. Kind of describe your collegiate career for me.
It was tough because we were one of the few Division II conferences, the only Division II conference in the country that didn't offer scholarships. And so we had 3 teams in the top 20 in the country every year. We had a bunch of kids that were kind of walk-ons, that some that weren't that serious. So we knew going in we would go about 5 and 15 every year, and it was kind of tough for morale and stuff. But we had a great conference. UC Davis and Hayward State were top 5 or 10 in the country every year, and playing at the top, I always had a tough match. But it wasn't the typical experience maybe at a bigger, higher profile program, but I enjoyed my time there. I had a great time with the guys. We had a good coach. Just not as much success as I would have liked.
So you did end up having success as you moved on in your singles career. You've won more than 25 USTA tournaments and have previously been ranked in the top 10 in the U.S. in your age category. What's it like to have that sort of singles success?
I play now primarily for the kind of the contacts for recruiting, to keep in shape, to keep my name in tennis, which helps me with my job. So I do it for selfish and professional reasons as well as kind of personal reasons. I do like to stay in shape. I like the competitiveness of it. I'm one of those guys who haven't had a lot of injuries. I've gotten older, so some of the guys who were better than me when I was a junior or even in college, I've caught up to a little bit because I've stayed healthy and stayed in the game. But I just love to go out and compete, and like I say, it's kind of neat when the kids on the team see that you can still play a little bit. I think they respect that a little bit.
And so moving on to coaching, you've been to a couple places before coaching here at Holy Names. You started at the University of Texas Pan American. You inherited a team that was 0-20 the year before, and in 2 years you took them to 8-13. Ultimately, by the time you left, you recorded the most wins in program history since 1992. So how were you able to really turn that program around?
Recruiting mainly. Tennis is probably more recruiting driven than any other sport. I believe there's no timeouts. There's not 5 assistant coaches. You're watching 6 matches at once sometimes if you're the solo coach, 3 maybe if you've got an assistant coach, and so there's not a lot of in-game adjustments. The better players win, and I hate to say that your job as a coach, you could be the best coach in the country. If you don't have the athletes, it doesn't matter. And just like you could be the worst coach in the country, and if you've got pretty good players, they're going to win most of the time. So recruiting is a big part of it. I work pretty hard, pretty passionate. So the recruiting has always been something I like doing. A lot of coaches don't like it as much, but in tennis, I think it's the number 1 factor.
You moved on to the University of Pacific in 2002. You had one of your players named Big West Conference Player of the Year, and then just like at UT Pan Am, your team won some ITA All Academic honors. So how it seems like you're not only teaching the athletes some success on the court, but you're teaching them success off the court as well.
Yeah, I mean, very few of these players have aspirations of playing pro tennis. Where the realities are, there's very few Division II, even Division I players that make it on the pro tour. So we try to teach them some life skills, how to be a better person. I've been fortunate; most tennis players coming in have pretty good grades, and they work pretty hard. If they're competitive by nature, they do well in the classroom. But we emphasize all the other things besides hitting a tennis ball. I mean, attitude and how to treat your opponent, how to represent the university. So it's much more than I'm developing hopefully young men and women for the next 4 years.
And then, so the tennis programs here at HNU are still pretty young. The third year for the women's program, and the second year for the men's program. And you've been the only coach in the program's history so far. So what is it like to start up a new program?
It's tough. It's tough. There's no name recognition. There's no history. There's no, there's nothing to fall back on as far as, equipment, about first year types of things that you would have in a program as far as facility type stuff. There's contacts. And so it's difficult the first year. You have to put in a lot of work. We feel like we did a real good job with both men and women getting a good large roster. So we're happy with the direction of the program.
And you guys have a tough schedule coming up this season. The women's team plays 7 matches against ranked opponents, while the men play 11, including a back-to-back with Sonoma State. What can we expect from both teams this year?
For the women, I think our number one goal is to finish in the upper half of the conference, to make the conference tournament, to gain some respect. This is the first year where we really have a deep roster of serious tennis players. So we're real excited on the women's side. On the men's side, you've got a bunch of guys returning. We've got 7 seniors, and so our goals are a little more lofty on that side. We hope to crack the top 30, 35 in the country, which would be the first sport to do it at HNU on an NCAA level. So we've set the bar pretty high on that side, and barring some injuries, we think that we're headed for a good season.
Well, Scott, thank you for joining us today. It's all the time we have here on Talk to a Hawk. Join us next week when we take you farther inside HNU athletics.